Welcome to the InnoGuide Podcast, where we share the works of authors and mentors to guide innovation. In episode number 30, we're sharing part one of Superagency. What could possibly go right with our AI future? By Reid Hoffman and Greg Beato. Introduction. Let's talk about something that's been a recurring theme throughout history. Every time a new technology comes along, people panic. They predict doom, dehumanization, and societal collapse. It's almost like a tradition. Think about it. The printing press, the telephone, the car, each of these faced intense skepticism, even outright hostility before they became essential parts of our lives. Back in the 15th century, people thought the printing press would destabilize society by spreading heresy and misinformation. The telephone? Critics said it would ruin the intimacy of face-to-face conversations. In cars, some argued they were destroying family life with young men saving for Model Ts instead of getting married. Fast forward to the 1950s, and automation was the big bad wolf. Machines were taking over factories and offices, and people feared mass unemployment. Time magazine even warned about a future of, quote, permanently unemployed workers. By the 1960s, Congress was holding hearings about how computers might threaten privacy and free will. Yet, here we are today with unemployment rates lower than they were back then, and technologies like PCs, the internet, and smartphones empowering individuals rather than crushing them. But now we're facing a new wave of fear, this time about AI, and let's be honest, the concerns are louder and more intense than ever. Even some AI developers are worried that superintelligent AI could pose an extinction-level threat to humanity. Others fear that malicious humans will use AI to wreak havoc long before the machines themselves turn against us. Add to that concerns about job displacement, human obsolescence, and the possibility of a tiny elite hoarding all the benefits of AI, and it's no wonder people are anxious. The argument goes that this time is different because the technology is different. AI isn't just another ability, it's starting to simulate human intelligence. Some researchers believe it could soon act autonomously in ways that don't align with human values. And let's face it, pop culture hasn't helped. From HAL in 2001: A Space Odyssey to The Terminator, we've been primed to see AI as our dark, menacing counterpart. But are these narratives the right narratives? History shows us that predicting the future is notoriously tricky. The mass unemployment people feared in the 1960s didn't happen, but neither did the flying cars from the Jetsons. And trying to stop the future by clinging to the status quo through bans or pauses has never worked. The world keeps moving forward, and competition drives innovation. Even within groups that share common goals, self-interest and differing values make coordination difficult. On a global scale, it's nearly impossible. Imagine trying to herd cats. Except these cats are armed, speak different languages, and have wildly different dreams for the future. The more powerful the technology, the harder it is to control. And that's why simply saying no to the future isn't a viable strategy. Instead, we need to actively shape it. The best way to prevent a bad future is to steer toward a better one. History has shown us that if a technology can be created, humans will create it. It's in our nature. We're not just Homo sapiens, we're Homo techne. Toolmakers, every ability we've invented from language to smartphones has redefined what it means to be human. These abilities shape us as much as we shape them. This doesn't mean we're powerless. We can't fully control the process, but we can guide it. Think of it like using a compass, not a rigid blueprint, but a dynamic ability that helps us navigate and adapt as we go. And this compass needs to be explicitly humanist. Every major technological innovation impacts human agency, our ability to make choices and influence our lives. A techno-humanist compass points us toward technologies that amplify human agency, both individually and collectively. With AI, this is especially critical. What happens to human agency when machines can replace us entirely? Should we slow down AI development to delay that possibility? I'd argue the opposite. We need to move forward with urgency, actively participating in how these technologies are defined and developed. That means ensuring billions of people have equitable access to experiment with AI in ways that matter to them. It also means using AI to tackle global challenges like nuclear war, climate change, and pandemics. Of course, we can't predict or control every outcome. The future isn't something experts or regulators can design in a lab. It's something society discovers collectively. That's why we need an iterative approach, learning and adapting as we go. This is the philosophy behind iterative deployment, a concept OpenAI uses to describe how it introduces its products to the world. It's about flexibility, not rigid plans. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Of course, you're optimistic about AI. You've got skin in the game, and it's true. My career has been deeply intertwined with technology. I was part of PayPal's founding team. I co-founded LinkedIn, and I've been involved with AI-focused organizations like OpenAI and Inflection AI. But my optimism isn't blind hype. I've seen firsthand the progress being made, and I believe AI's potential to create profound benefits for humanity. That doesn't mean I ignore the risks. On the contrary, I stay alert to them because I want this technology to succeed in ways that benefit everyone. Ultimately, this is about embracing change while staying grounded in humanist values. Socrates once criticized writing for being static and dehumanizing, yet books went on to democratize knowledge and accelerate human progress. Technologies that seem flawed or threatening at first often end up being transformative. AI is no different. It's up to us to guide its development with a techno-humanist compass, ensuring it amplifies human agency and helps us build a better future. And that's what this book is all about, exploring how we can navigate this journey together, learning as we go, and shaping a future where AI works for all of us. Let's get started. Humanity has entered the chat. Let's set the stage. It's late 2022, and the world is still finding its footing after the pandemic. Inflation has taken over as the top global concern. Food prices are sky high, and the tech industry is having a rough time. Big names like Meta and Amazon are laying off tens of thousands of employees, and the cryptocurrency world is in chaos after the collapse of FTX. It's a reality check for an industry that for years seemed untouchable, accused of manipulating the markets and trapping us in endless cycles of doom scrolling and digital addiction. But now, even big tech's most powerful players are struggling to keep their grip. And then, out of nowhere, OpenAI drops ChatGPT on November 30th, 2022. No hype, no flashy marketing, just a simple tweet. Try talking with ChatGPT, our new AI system optimized for dialogue. At first glance, it's just a chatbot. And let's be honest, chatbots don't exactly have the best reputation. Most of us would rather wait on hold for 20 minutes than deal with one. But ChatGPT, it's different. It's smart, versatile, and eerily human-like. It can explain quantum mechanics, write poetry about inflation, debug your Python code, and even make mistakes in ways that are oddly fascinating. People are hooked. Within 5 days, ChatGPT had 1 million users. In 2 months, it hit 100 million. Suddenly, the tech world was buzzing again. Google declares AI its top priority. Microsoft, already an investor in OpenAI, starts talking about AI co-pilots like they're the future of everything. Even Meta jumps on the bandwagon, creating a new AI product group. Startups like Anthropic and Midjourney are pushing boundaries, and even dense research papers about neural networks are going viral. AI is the hottest topic in tech. But with all this excitement comes fear. Critics who once called for antitrust actions to rein in big tech are now saying innovation is moving too fast. In March 2023, a group of AI leaders and technologists signed an open letter calling for a 6-month pause on training AI systems more powerful than ChatGPT-4. They're worried about risks like job loss, disinformation, and even existential threats. Congress holds hearings. The debate is intense. Yet, as the months roll on, the pause never happens. Developers keep working and AI keeps improving. OpenAI updates GPT-4, making it smarter and capable of analyzing images. Anthropic's Claude 2 can process massive amounts of text, enough to summarize an entire novel in bullet points. But challenges remain. These systems, built on large language models, LLMs, are still prone to errors, biases, and what we call hallucinations. When they confidently generate false or nonsensical information, they don't truly understand the world. They're just predicting the next word in a sequence based on patterns in their training data. This leads to a fundamental question. How far can these systems go? Critics argue they'll never achieve true artificial general intelligence, AGI. the kind of intelligence that can reason, adapt, and create like a human. But optimists like me see this as just the beginning. We're still in the early stages of a revolution, much like the Industrial Revolution in the 1700s. Back then, steam power transformed society, creating new opportunities for collaboration, innovation, and human progress. AI has the potential to do the same, but instead of synthetic energy, we're now working with synthetic intelligence. Imagine a world where every child has access to an AI tutor as brilliant as Leonardo da Vinci and as kind as Big Bird, or where everyone has a pocket-sized healthcare advisor that's always available. AI can amplify human agency, our ability to make choices and shape our lives. But it also raises tough questions. What happens to our jobs? How do we maintain trust in a world where AI can create convincing simulations of reality? And how do we ensure that these systems work for us, not on us? At its core, most concerns about AI boil down to concerns about human agency. Will we still have control over our lives? Will we be able to trust the information we receive? Will we retain our sense of identity and autonomy? These are big questions, and they're not new. Humanity has always used abilities to expand what it means to be human, from stone abilities to smartphones. AI is just the next step, a super ability that can help us achieve a new level of superagency, where individuals and societies operate at unprecedented levels of capability. But how do we get there? OpenAI's approach offers a clue. When they launched in 2015, they didn't have a specific product in mind. Their goal was simple: to advance AI in a way that benefits humanity as a whole. This led to the idea of iterative deployment, releasing AI abilities incrementally, learning from real-world use, and adapting as needed. ChatGPT is a perfect example. It's not an ability that works on you without your consent, like a recommendation algorithm. It's an ability you choose to use in ways that empower you. This approach puts people at the center of the AI experience, making it more inclusive and democratic. Of course, not everyone agrees on how to move forward. There are four main camps in the AI debate. The doomers, who fear AI will destroy humanities. The gloomers, who focus on near-term risks like job loss and disinformation. The zoomers, who want to innovate as fast as possible without regulation. And the bloomers, who believe in AI's potential but advocate for broad participation and responsible development. I'm firmly in the bloomer camp. I believe that by involving as many people as possible in shaping AI, we can create abilities that truly enhance human agency. This isn't just a domestic issue, it's a global one. Countries like China, the EU, and India are all racing to develop and deploy AI. If democracies like the US don't lead the way, we risk falling behind in terms of innovation, economic competitiveness, and even national security. The stakes are high, but so are the opportunities. By embracing an ambitious, inclusive approach to AI development, we can ensure that this technology works for everyone. So as we move forward, let's keep this in mind. AI isn't just about technology. It's about people. It's about trust. And it's about creating a future where everyone has a role in shaping what comes next. Humanity has entered the chat, and that's exactly where we need to be. Chapter 2. Big Knowledge. Let's start with a classic, George Orwell's 1984, published in 1949. It's a book that still resonates today, even though the world back then had fewer computers than you'd find in a single Starbucks now. Orwell's vision of a dystopian future where technology is used to surveil and control was eerily prescient. In 1984, the party, led by ominous Big Brother, uses constant surveillance, propaganda, and brutal repression to crush individuality and enforce total compliance. The telescreens in every home and public space don't just broadcast propaganda, they watch you back. It's a world where even thinking outside the party's lines is a crime. Orwell's vision was so powerful that it shaped how we think about technology and surveillance for over 75 years. Every time a new technological breakthrough emerges, there's a wave of fear that we're heading straight for Orwell's dystopia. This was especially true in the 1960s when mainframe computers started appearing in government offices, universities, and corporations. These machines were groundbreaking. They could process data at speeds and scales that were unimaginable before. For example, the IRS used an IBM computer in 1963 to process tax returns, and it scared people into paying $700,000 in back taxes. Computers were also being used to predict elections, manage traffic lights, and even calculate library royalties for authors like Astrid Lindgren, the creator of Pippi Longstocking. But with all this innovation came fear. Writers like Vance Packard warned that these giant memory machines could one day track every detail of our lives, from our failures to our most embarrassing moments. He even imagined a future where electrodes were implanted in babies' brains to control their behavior remotely. While that sounds extreme, there were more grounded concerns too. In 1965, a group of social scientists proposed creating a federal data center, in quotes, to consolidate the government's growing troves of data. The idea was to make this data more accessible and useful for research and policy making, especially as part of President Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society programs. But the timing couldn't have been worse. By the mid-60s, people were already uneasy about privacy. Advances in technology had made it easier to spy on others. Hidden microphones, tiny cameras, and parabolic microphones were being advertised in magazines. Books like The Naked Society and Privacy Invaders stoked fears of a future where surveillance was built into every aspect of life, from schools to office buildings. Around the same time, the Supreme Court's decision in Griswold v. Connecticut established a constitutional, quote, right to privacy for the first time, further fueling the debate. When the government announced plans for the federal data center, the backlash was swift. Lawmakers worried it would lead to a dystopian future where people were reduced to numbers on a tape. Congressman Cornelius Gallagher warned of a computerized man stripped of individuality, while others feared that computers would pigeonhole people into predetermined roles, from their jobs to their marriages. Vance Packard himself testified before Congress, painting a grim picture of a world where the government had an all-seeing eye and humanity was shackled by chains of plastic tape. The media ran with these fears, comparing the data centers to Hitler's Gestapo and warning of Orwellian nightmares. By 1969, the project was dead, thanks to public outcry and a change in administration. But even though the federal data center never happened, technological innovations didn't slow down. In fact, they accelerated. Hard drives replaced magnetic tapes, personal computers emerged, and eventually we got the internet, smartphones, and fitness trackers. Today we live in a world where data is everywhere, collected by everything from smart thermostats to facial recognition systems. And while the fears of the 60s haven't entirely gone away, it's clear that Packard and his peers got a lot wrong. For one thing, the rise of technology didn't lead to a world of totalitarian control. Instead, it's given us more freedom, diversity, and agency than ever before. The personal computer, for example, was a game changer. Early ads for Apple computers framed them as abilities for individual empowerment, comparing users to Benjamin Franklin, creative, independent, and revolutionary. And while Packard worried that corporations would use data to oppress us, the reality is that data has been used to personalize and improve our lives. Companies now cater to niche interests and subcultures, creating a more inclusive and diverse world. Of course, privacy concerns are still valid. Today's critics worry about how companies like Google and Facebook use our data, and AI's ability to manipulate behavior through personalized content. But it's also worth noting how much agency technology has given us. Platforms like LinkedIn, for example, have transformed how we build professional networks and find opportunities. When LinkedIn launched in 2003, it was revolutionary to create a public profile with your real name and career details. It wasn't just about finding jobs, it was about creating a network of trust where your connections could vouch for you and help you grow professionally. The idea of using networks to scale trust has been a recurring theme in the digital age. Platforms like eBay, PayPal, and Airbnb have built entire ecosystems around trust, enabling people to interact and transact in ways that were unthinkable before. And while sharing personal information online can feel risky, it's also incredibly empowering. By making ourselves visible, we gain opportunities to connect, collaborate, and grow. But here is the challenge. We're producing more data than we can process. In 1980, researchers estimated that the average person consumed only 0.004% of the information available each day. Today, that number is even smaller. The world generates enough data every second to fill billions of ebooks. This is where AI comes in. Just as steam power amplified human energy during the Industrial Revolution, AI can amplify human intelligence. By turning big data into big knowledge, AI has the potential to usher in a new era of clarity, growth, and empowerment. So while fears of Orwellian dystopias persist, history shows us that information, when shared and used wisely, can be a force for good. It's not about chains of plastic tape, it's about climbing ropes that help us reach new heights. Privacy is important, but so is the ability to share, learn, and grow. In a networked world, public identity and trust are just as valuable as secrecy. And as we move forward, the challenge will be finding the right balance between the two so we can harness the power of AI to create a brighter, more inclusive future. Chapter 3. What could possibly go right? Let's talk about optimism, specifically the kind of optimism that asks, what could possibly go right? It's a mindset that's often dismissed as naive or overly idealistic, especially in the world of technology. Critics love to accuse Silicon Valley types like me of solutionism, the belief that every societal problem has a simple technological fix. And sure, sometimes that critique is valid. But the opposite mindset, what I call problemism, can be just as harmful. Problemism is the tendency to focus only on what could go wrong, to see technology as inherently suspect and to emphasize critique over action. It's the default mode of the gloomers, who are quick to point out risks but slow to imagine possibilities. Technology has always been one of humanity's most powerful abilities for creating positive change. Yes, there are risks, and yes, we need to be cautious. But if we only focus on the potential downsides, we risk missing out on the transformative benefits. AI, for example, has the potential to address some of our most pressing global challenges: climate change, healthcare, education, even the flaws within AI itself. To combat deepfakes and disinformation, we'll need AI systems that can detect and counteract them. To improve food distribution in food insecure regions, we could use AI to optimize supply chains. Imagine an AI that could translate animal vocalizations, helping us better understand and protect endangered species. These are the kind of possibilities we should be steering toward. The problem with problemism is that it often leads to inaction. It's easy to criticize and harder to innovate. But progress requires risk, it requires exploration, and it requires a willingness to imagine the best possible outcomes and work toward them. This doesn't mean ignoring the risks, it means balancing them with the potential rewards. For example, AI in mental health care is a controversial topic. Critics worry about the risks of using AI to treat vulnerable people. But the reality is that we're in the middle of a global mental health crisis. Millions of people lack access to care, and AI could help fill that gap. Let's take a closer look at mental health care. Right now, the system is overwhelmed. In the U.S., nearly 50,000 people died by suicide in 2022, the highest rate since 1941. Millions more struggle with depression, anxiety, and other mental health challenges, but there aren't enough professionals to meet the demand. It can take months to get an appointment, and even then, care is often expensive and inaccessible. AI could change that. For example, AI systems could analyze millions of therapy session transcripts to identify what works and what doesn't. They could help therapists improve their techniques and provide more personalized care. AI-powered chatbots like Rebot and Wysa are already being used to provide support, even though they're limited by their reliance on predefined scripts. More advanced AI models like GPT-4 could take this a step further, offering nuanced, empathetic responses that feel more human. Of course, there are risks. When Rob Morris, the founder of the mental health app Koko, K-O-K-O, briefly added GPT-3 functionality to his platform, he faced a massive backlash. Users loved the AI-generated responses until they found out that they were written by a machine. Critics accused Morris of being unethical, even though the AI's involvement was disclosed. This controversy highlights the tension between innovation and public perception, but it also underscores the potential of AI to improve mental health care. If we can address the ethical concerns and ensure transparency, AI could make care more accessible, affordable, and effective. What's very interesting about the critics who accuse Morris of being unethical, they weren't users of it. They were publishers, they were the people in the news media, but the people involved had read that AI involvement was included, and they liked the way it worked. The backlash was from the critics who were not the users. The existential threat of the status quo. Is it more ethical to stick with the status quo where millions of people go without care, or to take a chance on new technologies that could help? The status quo is an existential threat in itself. It's not just about mental health. It's about all the ways our current systems fail to meet people's needs. AI offers a way to challenge those systems and create something better. For example, imagine a mental health platform where you could access a virtual therapist 24/7 for a flat monthly fee. You could even try different therapeutic approaches, get personalized recommendations based on your data, and even assemble a team of therapists to collaborate on your care. This isn't about replacing human therapists, it's about expanding access and creating new possibilities. And it's not just hypothetical. Platforms like BetterHelp and TalkSpace are already moving in this direction, though they're still limited by their reliance on human practitioners. AI as an ability for transformation. AI isn't just about scaling up existing practices, it's about reimagining them. For example, researchers have used AI to analyze millions of therapy session transcripts, uncovering insights that could improve care. They found that certain therapist behaviors, like making reflective statements, are more effective than others, like providing too much information. These kinds of large-scale analyses would be impossible without AI. In the future, AI could assist therapists by drafting session notes, analyzing transcripts, and even providing real-time feedback. It could help train more practitioners, making mental health care more accessible and affordable. And for people who can't access human therapists, AI could provide a lifeline, a way to get support when and where they need it. The superhumane future. One of the most exciting possibilities is how AI could make us more empathetic. Studies have shown that interacting with empathetic robots or AI can increase our own capacity for empathy. Imagine if AI systems, with their infinite patience and kindness, could help us become better, more emotionally generous versions of ourselves. This isn't just about solving problems, it's about creating a more humane and connected world. Critics often worry that AI will make us less human, but what if it makes us superhumane? What if it helps us unlock levels of kindness, understanding, and emotional intelligence? This is the kind of future we should be working toward, a future where technology amplifies our best qualities and helps us build a better world. What could possibly go right? A lot. If we're willing to take risks and embrace the possibilities, AI has the potential to transform mental health care, education, and energy, and so much more. But to get there, we need to move beyond problemism. We need to imagine the best possible outcomes and work toward them. Yes, there will be challenges, and yes, we need to be cautious, but the alternative, sticking with the status quo, isn't accessible. It's time to ask, what could possibly go right, and start building the future we want. Chapter 4. The Triumph of the Private Commons. Let's talk about the private commons. It's a concept that might sound contradictory at first. How can something be both private commons? But it's a useful way to think about the digital platforms we use every day, like Google Maps, YouTube, or LinkedIn. These platforms are privately owned, but they function as shared resources that billions of people rely on. And they're part of a new kind of ecosystem where users and companies create value together. And in the age of AI, this ecosystem is about to become even more powerful. But before we dive into the potential of the private commons, let's address the elephant in the room. The fear that big tech is hoarding all the reward. Critics like MIT Technology Review, Ted Chiang, and Sasha Zuboff argue that while tech companies have created immense wealth, most of it has gone to a tiny elite, leaving the rest of us with little to show for it. Zuboff, in particular, paints a dystopian picture in her book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. She claims that companies like Google and Facebook exploit our data to manipulate our behavior, turning us into little more than abandoned carcasses while they rake in billions. It's a compelling narrative, but it's not the whole story. Yes, big tech profits massively, but the value it creates flows both ways. Billions of people use Google, YouTube, and other platforms every day because they find them incredibly useful. And while these platforms do collect and monetize our data, they also provide services that generate enormous consumer surplus, the difference between what we pay for something and how much we value it. In the case of free services like Google Search or Wikipedia, that surplus can be astronomical. The value of the private commons. Let's break this down with some numbers. Researchers Eric Brynjolfsson and Avinash Kaulas conducted experiments to measure how much people value digital services. They found that the median amount people would need to be paid to give up search engines for a year was $17,530. For email, it was $8,414. For digital maps, $3,648. These numbers show just how much value these platforms provide, even though we don't pay for them directly. Take Wikipedia, for example. It's free, but it's also better than the expensive encyclopedias it replaced. In 1990, Encyclopedia Britannica sold 120,000 copies in its best year. Today, Wikipedia gets 4 billion page views per month in the U.S. alone. It's not just more accessible, it's more comprehensive and easier to use. The same goes for YouTube, which has evolved from a platform for cat videos to a vast library of how-to guides, educational content, and entertainment. Need to fix a leaky sink or learn a guitar solo? YouTube has you covered. And it's not just about replacing old products with free ones. Digital platforms enable entirely new behaviors. Think about digital photography. In 2000, people took 80 billion photos at a cost of about 50 cents each. By 2015, we were taking 1.6 trillion photos for free. That's an $800 billion increase in value just for 1 year. And it's not just the photographers who benefit. Thanks to platforms like Instagram and Google Images, we all have access to a global library of photos that enrich our lives in countless ways. The role of AI in the private commons. Now let's add AI to the mix. AI has the potential to supercharge the private commons by making it even more useful and accessible. For example, legacy search engines like Google are great, but they're not perfect. If you search for Jaguar, you might get results for the car, the animal, or the football team. An AI-powered assistant, on the other hand, could understand the context of your query and give you exactly what you're looking for. AI can also act as a personal assistant, helping you navigate the private commons in new ways. Imagine asking your AI to find a podcast you listened to 6 months ago, summarize it, and recommend related articles. Or picture an AI travel assistant that plans your entire trip, from booking hotels to finding running routes that match your training goals. These kinds of personalized, seamless experiences are just the beginning. And with the rise of multimodal AI models like GPT-4o, the possibilities expand even further. These models can process text, audio, images, and video, making them more versatile and more responsive. For example, you could point your phone's camera at a plant and ask your AI for care tips, or have it analyze your golf swing in real time. This is a shift from text-based interactions to fully multimodal experiences. This shift from text-based interactions to fully multimodal experiences will make AI feel less like an ability and more like a companion, always present, always helpful. The myth of extraction. Critics like Zuboff argue that big tech is extracting values from users, comparing it to mining or fracking. But this metaphor doesn't hold up. Data isn't a finite resource like oil or coal. It's non-rivalrous, meaning one person's use doesn't diminish its availability to others. In fact, the more data we generate and share, the more valuable it becomes. Platforms like Waze, for example, get better as more people use them because they can provide more accurate traffic updates. This is why the private commons is more like a digital farm than a mine. It's a regenerative system where data is cultivated, shared, and transformed into new forms of value. And while big tech companies do profit from this system, users benefit too. The challenge is to ensure that this value is being distributed fairly and that privacy concerns are addressed. Legislation like the EU's GDPR and California's CCPA are steps in the right direction, but we also need to rethink how we conceptualize data, not just as private property, but as a shared resource that can drive innovation and improve lives. Future of the private common. As AI continues to evolve, the private commons will become even more powerful. Imagine a world where your smartphone isn't just a device, but a fully integrated AI assistant that helps you with everything from learning new skills to managing your health. Need to learn a guitar solo? Your AI can analyze hundreds of YouTube videos and recommend the best ones. Planning a business trip? Your AI can book hotels, make restaurant reservations, and find running routes tailored to your preferences. This isn't just about convenience, it's about transforming how we live and work. AI can democratize access to knowledge and opportunities, enabling people to learn new skills, advance their careers, and improve their quality of life. And because digital resources don't deplete like physical ones, the potential for growth is limitless. What could possibly go right? The private commons is already a powerful force for good, and AI is poised to make it even better. But to fully realize its potential, we need to embrace an open and collaborative approach to data sharing, while also protecting privacy and ensuring ethical use. This isn't about extraction, it's about cultivation. It's about creating a system where everyone benefits, from individual users to society as a whole. So what could possibly go right? A lot. The private commons powered by AI has the potential to unlock new levels of individual agency, societal abundance, and global knowledge. And while there are challenges to overcome, the opportunities are too great to ignore. Let's focus on what we can build together. Chapter 5. Testing 1-2. Let's talk about testing. Testing is the unsung hero of AI development, the thing that keeps this whole field moving forward. But if you've been following the media coverage of AI, you might think we're in the middle of an AI arms race. Headlines like, "The AI arms race is on," or "Ethics may be the first casualty," paint a picture of reckless competition where companies are racing to deploy AI without thinking about the consequences. It's dramatic, sure, but it's also misleading. Because the truth is, AI development is not a mad dash to the finish line. It's more like an endless triathlon, with testing as the core discipline. The reality of AI development: testing, and more testing. AI development is all about testing. It's not driven by gut feelings or wild guesses. Instead, it's a meticulous, data-driven process where developers test, measure, and refine their models over and over again. The culture of testing has been baked into AI from the very beginning. In 1950, Alan Turing proposed the Turing test as a way to evaluate whether a machine could convincingly mimic human intelligence. Since then, testing has only gotten more sophisticated. Today, AI developers use benchmarks, standardized tests designed to measure specific aspects of a model's performance. These benchmarks are like the Olympics for AI, where models compete to see who can perform the best on tasks like language understanding, image recognition, or common sense reasoning. For example, the SuperGLUE benchmark tests a model's ability to understand language by asking it to answer questions, resolve pronouns, and interpret context. Developers from companies like Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI use these benchmarks to track their progress and compare their models to others. But benchmarks aren't just about competition. They're also about collaboration and transparency. By agreeing to test their models using the same standards, developers create a shared framework for measuring progress. This helps the entire field move forward, as everyone can see what's working, what's not, and where improvements are needed. Benchmarks as regulation. In a way, benchmarks act like a form of regulation. They set standards for what AI models should be able to do and hold developers accountable for meeting those standards. But unlike traditional regulations, which can be rigid and slow to adapt, benchmarks are dynamic. They evolve as models improve, pushing developers to aim higher and achieve more. For example, when OpenAI introduced Instruct GPT, they used benchmarks like truthful QA and real toxicity prompts to show how their model was less likely to generate false or toxic outputs compared to its predecessor, GPT-3. Over time, these benchmarks have driven significant improvements. GPT-4, for instance, produces toxic outputs less than 1% of the time, a huge leap forward. This constant cycle of testing and improvement is what makes benchmarks so powerful. They don't just measure performance, they inspire progress. And as models get better, benchmarks have to get harder. In fact, some benchmarks have become obsolete because models have surpassed them. This has led researchers to create more complex tests that challenge models to demonstrate deeper understanding and adaptability. The unicorn test, pushing the limits of AI. One example of these more complex tests comes from a 2023 study by Microsoft researchers. They asked GPT-4 to draw a unicorn using a programming language called TIC-Z, which is typically used for creating charts and diagrams. This task required the model to combine knowledge from multiple domains, understanding what a unicorn looks like, knowing how to use TIC-Z, and figuring out how to translate a visual concept into code. On its first try, GPT-4 produced a crude drawing, but with each iteration, the unicorn became more recognizable. This kind of interdisciplinary problem solving suggests that models like GPT-4 are developing capabilities that go beyond simple pattern recognition. But even as models improve, they still make mistakes. They can misinterpret context, generate nonsensical output, or fail to generalize their knowledge across different tasks. Critics argue that these errors show that AI lacks true understanding. And they're not wrong. AI isn't perfect. But then again, neither are humans. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. And benchmarks help us measure that progress in meaningful ways. The role of public testing, chatbot arena. While benchmarks are great for developers, what about the rest of us? How can ordinary people evaluate AI models and decide which ones to trust? Enter Chatbot Arena, an open-source platform that lets users compare AI models in real time. Here's how it works. You type a prompt, and 2 anonymous models generate responses. You pick the one you like better. Over time, these votes create a leaderboard that ranks the models based on user preferences. Chatbot Arena is like a crowdsourced benchmark. It doesn't just measure technical performance, it captures what people actually value in AI interactions. Do they prefer models that are more creative, more accurate, better at coding? By aggregating millions of votes, Chatbot Arena provides a clear picture of how different models perform across a wide range of tasks. This kind of public testing has huge potential. Imagine if hundreds of millions of people used Chatbot Arena to evaluate models. We could gather data everything from factual accuracy to emotional intelligence, creating a comprehensive map of AI performance. Developers could use this data to improve their models, while users could make more informed decisions about which AI to trust. The bigger picture, trust through transparency. At its core, testing is about building trust. Whether it's a benchmark in a lab or a vote on Chatbot Arena, every test helps us understand what AI can and can't do. And as AI becomes more integrated into our lives, this understanding is crucial. We need to know not just how models work, but whether they align with our values and meet our needs. This is where the concept of interpretability and explainability comes in. Developers are working to make AI systems more transparent so we can see how they make decisions and why they sometimes get things wrong. But while transparency is important, it's not the only thing that matters. What's more important is whether the system works, whether it's reliable, useful, and aligned with our goals. Moving forward, progress, not perfection. So where does this leave us? AI isn't perfect, and it probably never will be, but that doesn't mean it's not useful. The key is to focus on progress, not perfection. By continuously testing, refining, and improving, we can create systems that are more reliable, more capable, and more aligned with human values. And that's the real story of AI development. It's not an arms race, it's a marathon of testing, learning, and improving. It's about asking the right questions, setting the right standards, and working together to build something better. So the next time you hear someone talk about the AI arms race,
remember this: the real race is the race to improve, and testing is how we get there. So we'll pick up in Chapter 6 next time. This has been Superagency, What Could Possibly Go Right with Our AI Future by Reid Hoffman and Beato. I hope you'll join us next time. That's a wrap.